Well,
hello. Hope everybody's having an amazing Sunday. It's Sunday, right?
It is Sunday.
Oh, good.
That's better, right?
Yeah, that's much better. You're in the picture.
Causing
here.
a glare. I think I am.
Okay.
Happy Sunday.
So tonight we are here to talk about parenting in detail. Yes. Give some steps to use to parent with intention. We have some essential oils we're going to talk about. How to have a more peaceful home.
Yeah, I mean, you hear there's a lot of like catchwords these days, and we didn't write it because we didn't want to paint ourselves into any kind of box, but when you hear things like gentle parenting, conscious parenting, mindful parenting, attachment parenting, all of these things are things that have either inspired us or include what we do. And it's not saying that our way is like the be all end all right way, but what it is it cares about kids. And it's,
you can't go wrong with that.
You can't really go wrong with that. And on a lot of levels, I'm going to say, like, this is the right way because it's treating children as people.
Right.
We're going to talk about that more. But that's really the foundation of, like, this idea of evolving your parenting is really looking at children as people instead of as the subservient, lesser than creature, like our dogs or our cats. I don't even want to treat my dog and a cat like that, but a lot of people do treat their children as if they're like just a burden. They're like something to tolerate until they're older or until they can
not even a burden, but just somebody to kind of be ruled over or told what to do. Yeah.
Even if you love your kids, like you can still fall into the trap of treating them less than,
mm-hmm.
and that's gonna when you treat someone less than, they're learning to treat others less than, and so we're gonna go into more detail about all of that. But so I'll start, or you wanna?
No, I can get started here. So before we jump into some tips of how to kind of change your parenting from maybe a very strict follow the rules you thought you should be doing, we're going to evaluate our own beliefs, right? Because that's where it all starts. If we don't look and see why we parent in a certain way, we can't go on to change it, right? Mm-hmm. So usually it goes back to our own childhood. Maybe it goes back to the people you surround yourself with and how they do things. Maybe it's a show you watched or several shows, because you see parenting styles all over the place and you think it's acceptable and that's the way to do it because that's, how, can't even think of a show right now, how a certain show did something. And so we really have to go.
I loved Roseanne. But and even if you don't, especially if you don't think about intentional, if you don't think about what you're watching on TV, mm-hmm. In general, TV it's programming your mind. Even if you don't realize it, you think it's just fun entertainment. Every time you're watching anything in the world, you are who you hang around. And if those characters on TV are something you're around all the time, you're going to become that, whether you mean to or not.
It becomes part of
the way our brains work.
It becomes part of your belief system. What we surround ourselves with becomes part of our belief system. So if you're looking to change the way your family is running, maybe you're just at your wit's end and you're like, oh my goodness, what else can I do? I already do all these things you think should be effective and they're not. Let's go back. So the first thing we really want to do, and we're going to have a little exercise for you at the end, but we're going to talk about it right now. We can just talk about those, think about those beliefs. Take a quiet moment if you can in your house. I know sometimes that's hard. The bathroom, closet, those are good places in my house. Take a minute, and we have some oils that are really powerful to help you revisit some of your own blocks. So we have some up here: Release, Forgiveness, and Inner Child. They're the pink bottles that Kim's holding right now.
If I move, we'll be able to.
Release is a really powerful one. So if you're new to essential oils, it's so simple to use oils, and they can have such a big effect. You want to do, start small with oils. So just one drop of these at a time is really great. You can put a drop in your hand. You can inhale it from your hands. It goes through your body really quickly in just a couple seconds. And it really can shift how your mind is thinking. It's
like crazy.
Yeah.
Like when I start to do this kind of stuff every time, like we use oils every single day throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
But when I use oils intentionally like this, I usually walk away from whatever the experience was. If I gave myself a half hour or whatever it was in the morning to like sit and do it, I just like walk away feeling so good and so empowered. So yeah, they are really, really powerful. So Jen said release is a really good one. You can start off with just putting a little drop on your hand and then rubbing. You could rub over your liver, which is right under your right rib cage, or on your right rib cage. You can do front and back.
Yeah, and the liver is great because we hold on to a lot of emotions there, a lot of anger. So maybe if your childhood had some things that you just try to push down, but they do influence how we are parents today. So this is a great oil to work through things on your own, and it releases some of that anger. Feel it and let it go. Release it. Forgiveness is another great one. I like to put these oils over my heart too. I'm just always pulled to putting oils over my heart. And if you're new to oils, you'll realize that you kind of feel what their energy wants you to do with them. Sometimes I put them on the top of my head. I feel like that helps me with grounding oils, emotional ones on my heart, and just inhaled from my hands. So before you attempt to change your parenting style or your lifestyle in general, take some quiet time. Think about your own past. Use those oils, inhale them deeply, let them reach every cell in your body, and, journal maybe about your beliefs and what you have to work through. You're not going to work through everything in one time. This is going to be a process, but you have to recognize that your beliefs today came from something.
Yeah. And you can, there's always the opportunity to go deeper, but we want to help you like have a running start to just like get started somewhere, and then you can always go deeper, and we're always a great resource for that. Or we can point you to different directions if you want to continue to work on yourself, because when you work on yourself, that affects everyone. It affects your spouse, it affects your colleagues, it affects your kids, it affects everything in your life when you start to love yourself more and know yourself more. But this is just a teeny little like step into being self-reflective, and it's going to help you know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah,
because
when you work
you have
on
to
your
parent with intention.
Yeah. When I always thought like, we're so busy in this life that stopping to work on yourself just seems like an afterthought for a lot of people. And I always thought that for the longest time until Kim over here, forced me to really start looking into things. And I have so much. You just planted seeds, and I saw her start to do things, meditation and using oils for emotional things before I did. And your life just goes so much smoother. It's crazy. Yes. So that's a first great step. Some beliefs around parenting. Do we want to give them some like ideas of things?
Yeah,
just
to bring in thinking about your own. I think you said thinking about your own childhood, how you were raised and how you felt. Mm-hmm. A lot of the time we just do things as adults with our own kids because it's what our parents did. Even if we hated them, we kind of feel like, well, now it's our turn to be have that control. It's our turn to say, you have to go to bed in 10 minutes and there's no doubt about it kind of thing, where if we ask ourselves why we're doing that, again, I think I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but if we ask ourselves why and really start to reflect on that, it's going to help us to grow, grow and be able to move forward.
Yeah.
Before we move forward, if you have a piece of paper, now would be a good time. This is just like a little mini exercise just to get you started for this class, prepared for this class. If you don't, just think about it in your head, but it really helps to write things down. Just take a minute right now and write about what you want for your family. Like, what do you want for your kids? Because a lot of times we just go through the motions and do, like Jen said, what we've always seen, but we're not really paying attention to what we want. So like, just write down some key words. Like, do we want happiness? Do we want joy? Do we want fun? Do we want
I'm trying to think
Ease.
of some. Yeah, so think of some words that you can imagine your children and write down what you want to see in them. Hey, Tiffany, I haven't seen you in forever. Miss you guys. But yeah, think about your children and what you want to see for them.
Yeah, so just write down a few things. And then if you write things like happy that are like really vague, like what does happiness mean? What would it look like? And you can obviously go much deeper in this later when you're going to take a little bit of time to journal for yourself or just jot down some ideas. But just in this moment, going into this conversation, think about, what do you want when you had that little baby in your arms, when you looked at that little baby for the first time and you had all the hopes and dreams of the entire world in you for that child? Yeah. What were they? What were they? Because we forget.
Yeah,
we forget
we just
for ourselves, and
we survive each day sometimes, which I think is a big problem right now. Everybody's just trying to get to the end of the day, instead of enjoying those little tiny moments.
Yeah.
So the intention you want to write down and just have that. We'll give you something else to do at the end of the class where you're going to elaborate on that and really have it for yourself. But after you have that, what were we gonna... Oh, and we were talking about, so writing this now, if you have oils, you can grab some, anything that you're pulled to, but later on, when you do this in more detail, we were talking about using Envision is a wonderful oil. We have here is the purple one, and Clarity. And they're gonna help open your mind and really envision that future for you and your kids. It's not just your kids, it's really envisioning your relationship with them too. Like, we have these big dreams for our kids, and a lot of times it's go off and be successful. What does that mean? Where does that put you? Where does that put their relationship? So Envision and Clarity are great to use for this exercise. Again, inhale them, put them in diffuser if you're sitting in a room that has one, and just have them diffusing and going through your system as you come up with these ideas.
Yeah, and then the really important take home is to look at those things on a consistent basis. So you have, say, we'll talk about it. I keep saying we're going to talk about it. Sorry,
we're going to talk
all
right
over the
now.
place. We're going to talk it right now.
We got this.
If you don't know, this is my total passion. And I think I'm just overwhelmed by all the wonderful things I want to share. But anyway, once you have all of those words, you have some of those journal prompts later, go back through them and pick out the words that are really important and put them together into a cohesive statement, something like a motto for your family. And this shouldn't just be you. So if you have a partner that you're working with, it's really important to be doing this as a team. Maybe you could do it separately depending on how receptive your partner is. Maybe you could each do it separately and then come together with your ideas and then put that into a concise one sentence kind of thing that you can say every day. It can be your affirmation. Maybe you'll want it on the bathroom if you're really struggling with things, or you can have it in your pocket, but that you're looking at and reaffirming to yourself every day. We suggest you use Valor. You could either put a drop on your hands, or I always have it in a roll-on so I can take it wherever I go. It smells amazing. Everyone loves it, but it says exactly what its name. It gives you the confidence and courage to do everything that you want to do. So I usually put this on the back of my neck, and then also my heart is always.
Valor is one. It's a very gentle oil. You can literally bathe in it, put it all over your body. Or the Tiffany, you've used Valor several times. You know how it is. I believe you use it with your kids. Do you? Feel free to comment if you are an oiler and you've used these things before. But Valor is also just a great way to start your day because it balances your body and it opens you up to receive all the greatness of the day that's coming at you. I always start my day with Valor. I usually use it several times throughout the day, but I always end my day with it too. My kids love it. It's kind of our go-to oil, even if my 3-year-old's belly hurts. We give her Valor because sometimes it's because she's afraid. Usually it's because she's afraid. Anything, really, Valor is wonderful for. So after you have your intention, as Kim said, think about it daily when you wake up. Put on that Valor, say that through your head, envision that being your reality. For me, I'm trying to think just a simple one for my house, and I might change it later, is that I want connection and laughter through my house every single day. Right? That's what's really important to me. every single day and put that on. So whatever's important to you, come up with that. Apply your valor.
Yeah, it's good to revisit. Like, I feel like what you said, connection and laughter, sounds like a wonderful thing, and that's like what you want to focus on right now. But if you like maybe do this each month, or like every couple of months, or like, I mean, even more frequently if you're, you know, you have another partner and you're moving on something together, just looking back at what you do and continually reevaluating is going to also help your whole family be more cohesive. If you're looking at what's happening, like, how could we do this better? What could we change? What's a different value that we might want to instill and focus on? Because once the connection and laughter is like really good, after you do that for a little bit, now you're not going to need to say that every day because it's going to be part of your autopilot. Now you can add something else. Now maybe we want to learn together every day. We want to become lifelong learners. So consistently adding to it is going to really help.
And I think before we move on to the next part, with the partners thing, I want to talk about it. Oils can help through this a lot, but sometimes when we both come from different backgrounds, it's really difficult if we don't have the same parenting, or maybe you were the same as your partner and now you're trying to figure out how to have a more peaceful home. It can be done with a partner that's not quite there yet. And my favorite thing is just plant seeds, right? You do it, keep doing it, you be consistent, share what you're doing. Sometimes you'll be shut down and you just have to stay the positive in it and know that you're doing this for your kids, and eventually, I mean, hopefully, I can't tell what everybody's going to do, but the other person will begin to see, oh my goodness, we can be more peaceful. We can really be best friends with our kids. We can have this cohesive family unit. So use oils to give you courage, that valor, to just keep you going each day, even if that's a struggle in the home. But it's best to be doing it together so that the kids have, you know, that consistency on both sides.
Yeah. And find a support group. You know, like there are so many places online these days, like finding a group of people who you can talk to and who you can see what's possible. So if you're new to this, like finding a group, and you could ask us for recommendations, but finding a group of people who parent gently. There, oh man, I meant to have her. I'll post a few different resources at the end, but she's something. I don't know why I can't remember right now, but she is like really beautiful. Like I've gone to her over and over again. She has a website for specific issues. Like, what do I do if the kid is like throwing things at me every day? And I like, sometimes when you're in that moment,
you don't know what the
heck do I do? No matter how much experience and how many different things you've done, especially when you're on edge or at wit's end, you're like, what do I do? And it's really nice to be able to go to a community or go to a support place where there are other people commenting who've like, I have that exact same experience and this is what I did and this worked really well. But finding people who are doing what you want to do, not people who are doing just any old thing, and that could just lead you down the wrong path, or be validated like, it's okay, spank them because
everybody's doing it.
Right. Just because everybody's doing it doesn't mean that it's what's best for the mental health of your children and the mental health for you and that long-term relationship and connection that you are really trying to create. You're teaching your kids to be people in the world. You're teaching your kids to be caring, kind, empathetic, lovers of other people, and being generous. And if we're not showing them that from an early age and just doing it, they're not
lost later.
Right. They're gonna go down some other road, and you're gonna lose that wonderful relationship that you could have had. So
okay. So after you have your intention and you kind of have your affirmation sentence that you're going to say every day and start off with, you're going to go into the day, okay? So when we first become parents, we're going to talk about discipline a little bit here. And we were kind of chatting about it a little bit, but just think about all the different types of discipline out there. And like going on some chat groups, people will ask different questions, and it comes, you know, some people are totally fine with spanking. Some people are totally fine with yelling. There's timeouts. There's all of these things. When I became a parent, I basically knew I didn't like spanking. That was a thing growing up, though. A lot of us were spanked, and that was just the norm. But I did, like, again, the TV shows. I watched a show about a nanny who had very strict things. She wouldn't really talk to the kids. It was kind of like training.
Yeah.
And
yeah, military style.
Yeah, like military style. Okay, for every however old they are, that's how many minutes on the step or wherever it was that she would put them. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's working, because she would turn these crazy families into pretty non-yelling. But were they really happy in the end, or were they just obeying because, you know, they were trained?
Their
like
will
dogs.
was broken. Right.
Yeah.
Like, children are born with strong wills. And that's, a lot of the time we look at that and we're like, oh, like, my kid has so many strong opinions. Like, that's a bad thing. That's an amazing thing. That's a quality that's going to serve them for their whole lives. We just need to learn how to work with them and teach them that you can have a strong will, but you need to care about me as much as I'm going to care about you. This is a partnership.
Right.
And by doing that, they're going to learn how to harness that strong will, not be bridled or whatever that's called, but like they can harness their own strong will and learn how to use it effectively, not just be whipped into submission.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like one example. And we tried the super nanny way for a while with my first kid. I apologized to him on the on the daily because we were learning and that's what we thought was right. But like, you know, if he threw a toy, instead of a communication with him, and you know, it starts at like 1 or 2, it would be, okay, you sit on this couch for 1 minute because we don't throw toys. And then after a while, it seemed like, I mean, it works, right? He doesn't throw that toy, but then there's something else that he does. Instead of sitting down and explaining to them or telling us, you know, it hurts our feelings and talking to them like people, discipline is just, you did this, this is what happens. You do this, this is the consequence. And discipline is a very negative term, I feel like, in our society.
But really, the word discipline simply means to teach, which is what our jobs are as caregivers. Like, our job is to teach our kids.
Not to train.
Right. Not to train them, which is behavior modification. Like, it totally works. Like, if you do this every day so and I spit at you and you continue, then I'm going to stop doing that. If I do this, whatever. Right? But having these peaceful conversations, and so many people are, well, that doesn't work. It works if you do it consistently and if you mean it. Like, you have to, like, want to know about it in your heart. And it's going to take a little practice. Like, you're not going to be perfect right away, but everybody can learn it. You just have to give yourself a little time.
When we do that strict discipline, right, it seems like it's working at the time, but as we see later on, which we aren't always thinking about, we see them start to have some different issues sometimes. I mean, not everybody. Sometimes some kids figure out coping on their own, but there's always something. Even if you appear to be the perfect adult, there's always something that as a child was triggered in you. So growing up, if you had a very strict, disciplined family, trust issues could be a problem. Abandonment issues, eating disorders, addictions, all of those things show up later in life. So even though we have a peaceful home at this moment and mommy can cook without the kids jumping off the counters, that doesn't mean that our kids are going to have that happy life that we envision for them in the future, because we're not connecting with them like we should be.
Yeah. And I think we didn't actually plan on talking specifically about spanking, but I'm going to throw it in a little bit more here because there is research.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of research. And this is something, like, I really expected my friends, when it became time for child rearing, that I just expected that we were on the same page. I had been working at a child development lab for years already. And so I was really entrenched in child development, where most of us, because of the way our society is, we go to school, we may like see our siblings, but our parents are at school, we like all see each other for a little bit at the end of the day. For the most part, we're not learning about families. We are not learning about how to be parents, other than this like little bit of time before we go to sleep, which is not really enough. So a lot of us
are... And usually we have no patience at that time because we've been going all day.
Right, but I'm saying for us watching, now we're having kids. So I was like in my 20s and my friends were starting to have kids. And because I had been really entrenched in like so much research and in specific classes where I was learning about the effects on the brain of any kind of trauma. And spanking is trauma. And I know there are lots of people who are going to say, no, it's not, it's different. But it's not. Like, what actually happens in your brain is exactly the same thing as being punched by a stranger when
I mean, sometimes more.
Right, more
it's the
because
person
it's
you
somebody
love and you thought you trusted. Yeah.
Right, who's supposed to take care of you. Like, I remember that phrase of, like, this hurts me more than it hurts you. Like, I heard that many, many times.
Oh, that's what parents say when they do it. Mm-hmm.
Right, like, that was definitely something, like, common. And anyway, my point was, like, I expected a lot of my friends to be on the same page as me. And they weren't. Like, most of my friends, like, were still 100% like, this is what my parents did, this works. And that was like a real wake-up call for me, because I kind of thought in my 20s that, like, the world was changing and we were starting to understand and see this, but it's not. Like, I was just starting to understand and see it, but
and we're still
it's
there.
really, really common. Like, in so many different groups that I'm in, so much is that people just jump to that cause and effect. Like, if you do this, you're going to get a little whoop on the butt. If you do this, but really we should be treating our children like, I'm jumping ahead again, but this is where it feels right. So
yeah.
we should be treating our children like our neighbors, our best friends,
mm-hmm.
our spouses. We shouldn't be treating our children like they're less than, like I said in the beginning. They're people, and they're going to take that on for the rest of their life. They're going to carry all of that with them, everything. So being spanked on a consistent basis and learning that when you do something wrong, then you get hit, they're going to take that. When someone else does something wrong, I should hit them. I should be aggressive. I should have these feelings. And that's just one aspect. I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it. But
mm-hmm. And yeah, the stigma of you can't be friends with your children, I feel like we just need to throw that out the window, because you can be friends with your children. They're people, and if you respect them, they respect you. And it's pretty cool when you see it actually working. They don't walk all over you, you know? We'll talk some more about that too, but...
I mean, it is. People are going to say, I mean, I've heard so many things like that it's cultural, or that it's generational, like different people are able to be open to this is like new age parenting, but it's not. It's just being kind, caring, empathetic people, and raising the next generation of kind, caring, empathetic people.
Mm-hmm.
They're only going to learn what they see, and that's all of us. Like, a lot of the excuse or the reasoning behind a lot of the things that we do is like, well, I'm fine. But a lot of the time we think that we're fine. I mean,
we should make that a writing prompt too, right? All the things that come up that you're not fine about, and you'll realize that the way your parents did it didn't create fine.
And also here, this is a really important thing, is like recognizing that every person is doing the very best with what they have at the current time. So recognizing this in yourself, like maybe you're noticing, like thinking, maybe there are some things I could change. Maybe there are some things that I might like to shift. But now you're starting to feel bad about everything that you've done so far. Or you're thinking about your parents and you're like, how could they have done that to me?
Yeah.
All of us,
we're
all on
right
a journey.
Mm-hmm.
We're all doing exactly what we can right now. So it doesn't matter what happened in the past. Like, you were doing your best then, and now you're at this new point and you have new information. When you have new information, you can do better things.
Yeah,
you can do different things.
Do better.
So
always.
All right.
We are going to talk about communication, which is the most important part about parenting.
All of it.
And it's funny because sometimes we just go straight to the discipline and how are the kids behaving and what do we have to get done, right? And we forget about that true connection and true communication, which is going to create their future.
Yeah. I'm just going to throw in, I'm a little hippy dippy and love my crystals to go along with my oils. So blue crystals go with your throat chakra, and I like to hold blue crystals in my hands whenever I am doing any kind of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Like this. Usually I would be holding them now, but I put them on the table.
They help you speak your truth.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
You can, and when speak your truth, but also just communicate well. Listen, be a great listener and a great speaker, and that's the key to what you want to do with your kids. So if you believe in this kind of thing, you like it, you can just put a blue rock, stone, crystal in your pocket.
Right?
Yeah. But there's two different kinds of communication, speaking and listening. Those are receptive, expressive, the foundation of all of life, pretty much. And it's really at the core of your relationship with anybody, but of course today we're talking about parenting. So she said, I think you said, it might seem common sense that communication is an important part of parenting, but I think a lot of times we just jump over it and we start thinking about the specific actions and the specific behaviors that we want to combat or that we want to make better. But if we can get down to the root of communication, it's like the foundation of that relationship, then we're going to be able to start unfolding things.
Yeah, really work out the true problems that are happening.
In a really natural way. And sometimes problems don't even happen. When you communicate with kids well, when you show them that you're willing to listen to them and really listen, sometimes they don't have a tantrum. Sometimes they don't be disrespectful. They are much more open because they're seeing how much you care about them.
Yeah. And they also know that their words, before they jump to having that breakdown, they know that their words are going to mean something when they come to you. Yeah. And I know sometimes we want to communicate with the kids and we're in a rush and we just are like, okay, and you make a quick response. And I think we have to reevaluate sometimes, is it important that we really rush to that next thing, or will it be vital to listen to what my kids' concern is right now? So really stopping, and you're going to talk about like the steps of listening.
Yeah, so
might be common sense, but maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, getting down on the child's level. So if you have a toddler, like crouching down so that you can look at them in their eyes. Like think about if you were standing here and there was like an 8-foot person leaning down on you, like talking to you and telling you what was going on. How would that feel compared to that 8-foot person sitting in a chair next to you and you're having a conversation where you're both looking at each other, making eye contact? It's a much different feel. And the child actually feels much more receptive to what you're saying when you're at that same level.
Yeah, well, they kind of zone into you, too. I know a lot of times if you're trying to talk over them, they don't even realize you're speaking to them, and then you're losing your patience. So coming down is a huge... I think that's one of the first things I changed a while back. Like, even with Emma now, it's not even a second thought to sit down or get on the floor and hold her and be at that level.
But that takes practice.
It does,
I mean, it's like when they're about to have a tantrum or they're getting really mad, if you just sit on the ground, like changing your voice level, like if you were talking like this, but then you all of a sudden start talking like this, just that can totally shift things. Because just that change in tone causes different attention.
De-escalation.
If you were talking really loud, and then you're like, if you were trying to get happy attention, like, hey everybody, come on over, that gains attention, but it works both ways. Putting down your phone, you know, like if you're, or whatever you're doing, if you're in the kitchen chopping vegetables and your child runs in with a whole bunch of different things they're talking about, or 2 kids run in and they're kicking each other and now everybody's crying, just stop cutting the vegetables for a minute. I know dinner is in an hour and you've got 10 million other things to do, but this problem will be able to be handled faster and more effectively if you just stop what you're doing for a minute and give your whole attention to what's happening here. I often will just sit on the floor, sometimes not say anything at all, just sit there, because sometimes just your presence, like your presence is so powerful, it's so meaningful to a child that sometimes they'll just come over and sit on your lap and cry, which let them cry, because crying is letting out, it's releasing really important emotions, and then they're going to be able to move on. Sometimes they're going to come over and then they're going to be able to talk about what's happening. And if they don't, then you're going to move into the next part of speaking and knowing what to say. But our job is to guide them into being the very best versions of themselves, not to change them, not to make them be what we want them to be. And I think that's a really hard thing. We have these visions, and this comes back to that intention that we talked about in the beginning. We have visions for what we want, but sometimes we have to be a little less specific. Sometimes we have to want the kids to be who the kids are, because they were born into this world. They're their own people. They're not mini Kins. They're not mini Jens. They're themselves, and they're going to have a lot of your influence, but our job as caregivers is to really nurture and embrace that so that they can find their own light and let it shine.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of times, if you have a child that has a lot of energy, in our society now, we think that's a bad thing. And instead of embracing it, we try to calm it down.
Yeah.
Instead of listening to them enthusiastically and jumping in on their excitement, we try to find ways, how can we calm them down? How can we do this? So just take in that energy, because they're not going to have, I mean, maybe they will have that energy forever, but that's amazing when you're an adult, right? Don't you wish you had a child's energy?
Yeah.
So don't take it away when they're 4.
I think a lot of the reason that we don't have so much energy when we're adults is because we were conditioned to not have so much energy.
Yeah.
Like if you're jumping around and dancing and singing and every day someone tells you to be quiet.
Yeah, this isn't the place for it. This isn't the time for it.
It's going to really affect you, and it's going to affect who you become in the world. So childhood is so important. I mean, the first year, and then the first 3 years, and then the first 8 years. Like, they go in those chunks of, like, importance and how many different connections are being made in the brain every single day. And there's a lot of new research on neuroplasticity, the fact that our brains can change and grow even through adulthood, but it's during that time that it's the most crucial, because we're laying the foundation for who these little people are going to be for the rest of their lives. And we have a lot of power and opportunity to show them really great things.
But also know that if you miss that window, we can still work through a lot of those things and give them a great example to move forward. Because I know that can be guilty sometimes. Like, oh my goodness, the first 3 years are done. What have I done? Don't worry. Start fresh today.
Right. Every day counts.
Yes.
Every single day counts. And then just one more thing on that is that a lot of people think that little kids have it so easy. Like, looking at our relative lives where we're thinking about bills and we're thinking about just all the myriad of things. We have to go food shopping and we have to work and pick up the kids and do all of these things. It feels like all they do is play. And their life is so simple. And why can't they just appreciate this wonderful life I'm giving them? All they have to do is eat the food that I make. I spend all this time cooking. Why can't they just eat it? And we have to get to the place where we're looking at the children. They have their own, right. Mm-hmm. This is a whole new world to them. So that food that they may not want to eat, or this thing that you want them to do that they're not interested in, they're learning about their own preferences. They're learning about their own motivations. And it's not easy. Having emotions that you don't know what to do with, and probably a bunch of people around who don't know how to handle their emotions, because most of us don't. We're not taught that in school. Social emotional development is just now starting to become something that people know about in mainstream life. But in general, it's not. We were, little boys don't cry. And
okay, suck it up. That was another one. Yeah,
we
don't want to hear that. We don't,
Yeah, those things are totally normal, but they're not what's going to help us thrive. So recognizing that the child is going through a lot and it's hard to be a little kid. You have no control over anything.
Right.
Like, think about it. You don't get to choose one thing from your life other than maybe like whether you paint or play with blocks right now. And sometimes not even that. You really want to paint, but it's not convenient for the adults. So think about that from an adult's perspective. If you didn't have any choice on when you ate, when you slept, whether you went anywhere, whether you saw any people, like, those things can really add up. That's really hard for a kid. So understanding that and showing them that you understand that, validating their feelings when you see that they're going through something, simply acknowledging back, reflecting back what's happening. Like, their tower all fell down for the 20th time. To you, it might feel really, like, silly, stupid, like, just build it again. But to that kid, like, that's everything.
They spent so much of their effort. That's what they were learning that day. Right. That was their project. That was their work.
In that moment, right. Play is the work of young children. It's how they're learning everything about the world, everything about life. And little things like building a tower are super important. They're getting tons of different skills out of that. Again, another class. But
we could talk about this all day, but
yeah, we are rambling a little bit.
But not really, but it's important to realize that their big emotions are, we need to validate them. That's what you were going for here, is to let them know, I feel that, I see that you're frustrated, I see what happened, saying that you acknowledge that they worked hard, and then maybe giving them letting them be frustrated. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And then maybe coming up with solutions together. That's the big thing about we listened to them, we validated them, and now we're speaking with them at their level, listening to their problems, and then helping them come up with the next step.
And you can do this even with little babies or pre-verbal toddlers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to be able to say it. You can, a lot of the time we know why they're crying, right? Like, we take away the food because they were throwing it. And then you'd finally say, if you throw it one more time, I'm going to take the food away. Which, again, we wouldn't even condone doing that. But if that's where you're at, and then you take the food and you put it away, and now the kid is screaming and crying. So now you can, because that's exactly what would happen. Like, they weren't eating the food, they were throwing it on the floor, they were throwing it at you, but you take it away and now they're a mess. But you can come back, and now you can sit down. And you can say, hey, I see that you were throwing the food all over. And I was going to put it away, but now you're really upset, huh? And then just by you sitting down and looking at them, and again, your tone of voice, not saying it in an angry way, not saying it, saying it in an understanding way. Like, now you really want your plate back, huh? Sometimes they're just going to be like, even if they can't talk, like, and just like, wow, I was really feeling frustrated. Modeling, you're using your words, you're saying how you feel. I was feeling really frustrated. I didn't want pizza on me. Look, I have sauce all over my shirt. It really made me feel sad and frustrated. My nice shirt has pizza on it. So showing them what feelings are like, showing them it's okay to express feelings in a nice way. You showed me that you were done. Do you think you want to eat more food? And now they might say yes. And if they do, you can be like, okay, I'm going to bring the food back. We're going to have one chance to eat. But if not, then we're going to put it away. Saying it in a really clear, this is what's going to happen, but holding up to that bargain. And if they say no, and they might say, no, all done. Mm-hmm. And then you'd be like, okay, now we're going to get cleaned up. But just coming back and having that moment, like if you had done that to begin with, instead of just saying, if you already again, I'm going to take it away, it probably would have stopped before. But if sometimes it doesn't, I mean, no matter, you can be as nice as you can be and understanding as you can be, and they're still going to throw the pizza in your eyeball. That
yes.
But continuing to do this over and over, and then then there's other things you can do.
Really, you see the big difference. Like, I know a lot of people will hear this and be like, okay, I tried that before and this happened. But the consistency over
it's a practice.
Years. It's not going to change. I mean, you'll see big differences after a couple weeks, honestly, of doing it. You're not going to see it immediately because they're not trusting that you're going to keep communicating with them. They have to gain your trust back if this is not the way you've communicated before.
Yeah. So yeah, but even little kids, even just validating how you think they might feel if they fall, and they're or with that block tower, be like, wow, I noticed you built that tall tower and now it's all over the floor. I bet you feel really sad. Or if they're screaming, I can see you're feeling really, really sad about that, or you're feeling really frustrated. You can give words. I mean, you don't want to put words in their mouths, but especially if they're pre-verbal, you might have to do a little bit of that. And am I right? You can ask them, and if they are, they're still going to give you some kind of a response. They're going to nod or smile or not. They're just going to be receptive, or they're not. But giving them that validation is going to go really far.
Mm-hmm. And it works with the older kids the same exact way. I'm trying to think, I have a 13-year-old, and sometimes he's working on a project for hours, and then bam, something happens, and it's just frustration. And instead of saying, getting frustrated, you can do the same exact thing. So this works for all ages. Just, man, that really stinks. Let me know how do you feel about it? Okay, let's, work with them and let them communicate their feelings. Always, always, always.
This works for adults too.
It does. For
it's
everybody.
Just good communication.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is just listening to people, being a listener is really, really important. But then what you say is also really important. And that's the next thing we're going to talk about is thinking about why. Well, we did say that. Thinking about why you say what you say. Maybe I
don't think we really jumped into the why you're saying what you're saying.
I don't know why I thought I missed
That's our next
somehow.
thing. Jen's favorite.
Yeah, thinking about why you say what you say. And so much of this, if you start this practice of, when they ask, can I go jump on the trampoline right now? And maybe you don't feel like going outside, and so you immediately just say no.
Mm-hmm.
But if you stop and give yourself a minute, like, why am I saying no? Is there any way that this could be a yes? Could I open the blinds and now I can see them? Hey, wow, I get 5 minutes to stand in my kitchen by myself.
Uh-huh.
Like, if you just give yourself that chance to, like, what could happen if I said yes?
Then you have happy kids
great possibilities.
and happy you. Mm-hmm.
Instead of just saying no, and now they're like, oh, I want to go on a trampoline. Now they're fighting with you. They also, jumping on the trampoline is really good because it's getting out a lot of things. In that example, like letting their bodies move and being outside. But examples aside, sometimes you just jump to the answer that just feels like we don't want to get messy. We don't want them to have to change clothes. Messy is huge.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to paint right now. I don't want you to do Play-Doh right now. I don't want you to do kinetic sand right now because I'm going to have to clean up.
Yeah.
But if you give a little extra time to show them how to clean up their own mess, it's always going to be more work. It's always going to feel probably like more work for you. But if you start early, like, fine, we're going to play kinetic sand, but when you're done, we're going to get down and give them a little dustpan, and we're going to work together to clean up this little mess together. And you're going to teach them how to live in your house,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not going to be dependent on you, and your life is going to be so much easier when you say yes.
Yeah, the saying yes, and I don't remember where I first heard it, but like doing a challenge, I guess it was in a parenting group where they're like, do it for one day. Say yes to as much as you possibly can. And I did this one day, and I caught myself so many times, like, why? Why am I doing that? Like, I didn't want to go outside. Okay, I have a fenced-in backyard, like Kim was saying. Or my husband's big thing is playing in the mud because they'll be dirty. Okay, like, take a hose and hose them off. Put them in clothes that you don't care about getting dirty, and they learn so much when they do the things that they're really passionate about doing at the moment. Like, going to play in the mud could seem like nothing to an adult, but to them, that they're digging, they're exploring, they're doing so many things out there. So try to think about it before you jump to that. I feel like it's the easiest and the hardest as a parent, because we just have our ideas of what we want to do that day. No, you can't do that because we have to do this in 20 minutes. No. If you let go, oh my goodness, it just becomes so much easier. And then, so this would be, instead of just reacting, we're talking about responding. So taking that moment and bringing in our oils here, which I do on a daily basis, grounding oils. If you're prone to just jump to reactions and jump to get frustrated, all of those kind of things, and you just are quick to react, grounding oils are going to be great to add into your daily practice. You can do it in the morning. You can do it maybe when you're just feeling overwhelmed, like the kids want to do so many things and I want to let them do them, and what is the answer? Grounding oils are just going to recenter you. They're going to make you think clearer. So we have Northern Lights Black Spruce is one of our favorites.
And cedar wood. Any kind of tree oils are very grounding for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. Trees have roots. So pine, Northern Lights Black Spruce.
And I love to put grounding oils on the top of my head, on the crown of my head. I don't know where you...
I just put oils everywhere. I usually put them in my hand, and then I usually try to hit all the chakras regardless. So I go up and down my spine. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
I don't know what, but the grounding when I'm just feeling all over and like I just want to react and I don't feel like stepping back and thinking, I will just take the oils and just like put them all over my head to pull myself back in to reality at the moment.
But lower back is a really good spot for grounding. Yeah. So frankincense is just an all-around amazing oil. It's in your premium starter kit, obviously. You would know that if you had it, because everybody loves frankincense. But it comes in Vitality, and I often just do a drop of Vitality under my tongue.
And Vitality means that it's safe to ingest. And Young Living has different oils. If they're labeled with the white, that means they're safe to ingest. So we have our frankincense there. Yeah, and you can ingest them, frankincense right under the tongue.
I feel like when I taste it, and different people, like, you'll know, like, the smell, the taste, you're going to feel it in a different way. And I'll drop that under my tongue and I'm like,
yeah, no, me too. I do frankincense every day under my
tongue. Might not like the way it tastes. I love the way it tastes. I've gotten used to it.
Yeah, me too. I like Crain now. I probably do 2 or 3 drops of that a day.
It's good stuff. I could just live it. It's definitely my all-time favorite oil.
The oils are definitely here to support you and bringing you, again, because the parent is going to set the mood for the entire house, right? So you need to keep bringing yourself back. Bring yourself back. It's not that kid that's out of control. Look back at yourself. Are you out of control? Because it's usually us, and it just escalates and escalates, and it really makes things harder if we just react instead of responding. Yeah. Right?
Our kids are often mirrors of us. Like when you're really frustrated, if you have a second to stop, think about what they're doing and how it's similar to something you might do.
It's so
because
hard.
When we see ourselves in others, it is so hard and it's so frustrating. Like we see the parts of us that we don't necessarily love, and it becomes the most frustrating thing. And that can be in some of my most contentious children relationships are in people that I've realized later that they were just like me. So noticing that about yourself and then accepting that about yourself, that's a good one for inner child. Then you can go back later and put a little inner child on underneath your nose and maybe do a little journaling about that particular trait or characteristic or like behavior that the kid was doing and how that might relate to what you've done and how you were treated growing up. Again, it's going to come back to the control of someone else controlling you and you needing to control now.
And remember, if you do react, we're trying not to just have that immediate reaction, but if you do, and then you realize after you start to listen to your child that you were wrong, this is also a big thing that we don't usually do as parents. You can go back and apologize to your child, just like you would do a friend. Maybe our egos are maybe some people don't even do that to their friends. You think you're right, even when you realize you're not right, you kind of just scoot around the situation. Yeah. But how big is it for your child to see you realizing you made a mistake and coming out with it and saying, I'm not sure, maybe mommy was feeling a little tired about going outside, but I'll have my cup of coffee on the porch while you and your sister go and play. I'm sorry that I made that decision. I'm sorry that I had a little attitude about it. Like, be a real person because they are real people and they need to see it's okay to make mistakes. Yeah. And then how to react to those mistakes and not just scoot around it and ignore it.
And then the one last thing is just to be preemptive. Like, notice how you're talking, notice what you're thinking, and then don't lay down the law. Don't throw out some great big thing that especially they might I think the example you said earlier was like, we're leaving in 2 minutes, and if you're not in the car when I say go, then we're never coming back to the playground. Or we're not coming back to the playground for a week. Is that going to suit anybody well, first of all? Like, is that a realistic threat that you're using? Are you really not going to come back to the playground for a week?
Or are you just trying to get through the moment with
threats?
You're
feeling frustrated, and then you're taking that frustration out, but now that's not allowing the child to trust you, because even if you say that, and now we're having a big fight, and they get in the car, but then you come back to the playground in 2 days, now they're like, wait, but she said we weren't coming back, but you think you're just being nice, but you're sending a whole bunch of mixed messages. Yeah. So, and in the moment, if you need to back down, then that ego is rearing inside of you, and you're like, I'm not going to back down. The 2-year-old, I'm not going to let the 2-year-old win. And now you're having this big battle. But if you just didn't lay out the ultimatum to begin with, if you just talk to them about why you need to leave and sit down patiently, and then I'm going to get ready to leave now. I hope that you're coming with me. And then it might take a little bit more time. But again, ultimately, it's going to leave everybody feeling better and have more success in the long run.
The threats, they might work, right? Again, in the short term, but then you have all these big issues later. Yeah. And you want to go back to the playground in a couple of days because you realize that's where your kid gets out their energy, and now you're like, shoot, I have to stick to my word.
Right. And what are you gonna do? And the playground, that's a whole other thing. It's so hard because I just talk about everything.
On and on. Yeah. But don't throw out the big thing immediately. And that's, again, we have to step back and not react. Just say that in your head. Why am I saying no? Why am I saying this consequence? Is that a realistic consequence? Is this really necessary that we have to say no right now? Think about it. Not just parenting.
And then the consequences, we've talked about it a little bit, but of this old school behavior modification style are really things that will come up later. So if you are not learning to trust, if they're not learning to trust you, because our interactions are building a foundation of trust. So if you're showing them care and love, that you're going to be a good listener, that we're going to be the part of a team, they're going to learn to trust you. If you're showing them that if they can only receive your love if they do everything right, if they listen to your words, they're going to not know who to turn to. Because if they do something wrong, then they're going to get to a place they can't tell you, because now they're going to get in trouble, whatever that means. If they really want to do something and they know that you don't want them to. Now, whenever anybody has a desire in their heart to do something, there's a reason. And so part of our job as parents is to take the desire and make it appropriate, make a way for them to express it appropriately. So they really want to jump off, I don't know, like a really high thing, and you don't feel comfortable with that. Fine. Or they're in the house and they want to climb the cabinets and jump off. Okay, you can't do that, but that shouldn't be the end. Now it's our job as parents to facilitate. You really want to jump. So maybe we're going to go to the playground. You really want to jump and it's a rainy day, we're inside. Let's build a whole tower of couch cushions so that you can jump off into other couch cushions and you turn it into a new game. So letting them learn how to trust that you're going to be there for them, that you're going to help them to figure out their own desires, their own concerns, their own issues, is going to give them a foundation for life. But when we don't do that, when we constantly come at them with threats and we come at them with punishments that are arbitrary, like often, like if you don't eat all your peas, then we're not going to the playground. Peas and playground have nothing to do with each other. One of them is actually, both of them are good for your body, but if they don't eat the peas, they shouldn't be stripped of physical movement and play and joy and fresh air. And so having consequences that really go with whatever the issue is, that makes sense, like natural consequences. Mm-hmm. If you don't eat your peas, you're going to be hungry. Like, there's no more food for the rest of the day.
That's all we have.
And that's really it.
We'll put it here, and if you want them later.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like a whole other thing, but even like peas shouldn't be a consequence of not getting dessert. Because, I mean, that's, again, like another like a big topic is food. But, like, withholding dessert is going to actually change how they look at all of their food in general. They're going to be, like, thinking they have to get through vegetables because they're yucky in order to get the yummy sugar. But again, we'll talk about that later.
When you have these types of consequences that don't seem to make sense, I mean, they don't make any sense, right? Like if we go back and think about a lot of them, like what Kim was just saying, then as they get older and they become teenagers, they're not coming to you. They start to look for other ways to figure out what they're supposed to be doing in life, right? So we have addictions, we have partying. They haven't learned to trust themselves because you haven't been there as a person showing them how to trust, right? Is that what you were, we were talking about this part? And so they don't trust themselves, so they're going out doing all these things. Maybe they're really risky behaviors, but they haven't learned enough about themselves because they weren't able to express it as children. And then we have all these much bigger problems, and they're not coming to you for them.
And that can lead through all of life. I mean, just risk-taking itself. We need to let our kids take risks to climb higher than we feel comfortable, to do things that...
Because they have to learn to trust themselves, not just be told what to do. Yeah,
trust is the foundation of so much. And when they can trust themselves and they can trust you, then they're going to be ready. They're going to have their power center full. They're going to like walk out into the world ready to do things. But if they're unsure about things because they don't know who to trust, and they think that they're always wrong, or they think that if they don't do things exactly the way you say that they're not valid people, then they're gonna continue to try things that are crazy. They're gonna the risks are, and I'm saying the risks are gonna be much on a grander scale, like gambling. They're gonna be like buying a house that they shouldn't buy, or like having relationships that very quickly end in divorce because they don't know, they haven't figured things out themselves. So now they're taking these big risks and practicing as adults instead of practicing as kids.
So try to look at your kids and what their future is going to be like. It's not just in the moment. It definitely leads to their whole entire life.
Mm-hmm. So again, just to reiterate, modeling what you want to see. If you want kind kids, be kind. If you want generous kids, be generous. Like people do what they see, and you are your child's very best teacher from day one. And if you can go out into the world and be the person you want your child to be and let them watch that every day, they're going to have a really good chance of becoming the same kind of person.
Yeah, it's amazing, like over the years, meeting different types of families and seeing those families that are super strict and spank and do timeouts and, you know, kind of military style basically, and then the kids, I feel like, just act up more and they don't speak nicely to each other, they don't speak nicely to other people, and then you meet those families and it's so funny. They'll always be like, sorry, my children are wild, but their children are wild because they're climbing and exploring and trusting their bodies, and they come up to you and they're just the sweetest people. I think that's Sharon. Is that Sharon watching? It is Sharon, and your family is one of them, Sharon, that are just the sweetest, kindest little kids. But they just come up and they might, you know, they know how to explore, they know how to trust themselves and their family, and then they know how to speak to people. It's the opposite of what a lot of people think, like, oh my goodness, you don't have strict discipline, your children are gonna be wild, crazy, screaming tantrum. That's not how it is. We have to reverse that in our heads. Be beautiful people, they'll be beautiful people.
Yeah. Having the room to explore and try things is what's going to help them to be those beautiful people. So I think we gave lots of examples. We were going to talk about examples of some frustrations that you might have, like transitions are a really big one. I think we'll still touch on that a little bit. Transitions are one of the hardest things. As a preschool teacher, woo! Every time you ask a child...
I can't imagine with 20 kids in the room.
I mean, so a transition is anytime you change something. So if you are in your house and the kids are playing and now you want them to come eat, that's a transition. If they are playing and now it's going to be bath time, that's a transition. If they're getting dressed and now it's time to get in the car to go to the playground, all play, all fun, still a transition. Every time you're moving their bodies from place to place and asking them to shift from one topic to another, that is really hard for little kids. They need time, they need warnings, and when you give them that time and give them ample time within each activity. So if they're playing and it's just like 15 minutes of playing and then you want them to go do something else, but they just got into whatever game that is that they're playing in their head, and you ask them to stop abruptly, you're gonna have a problem. Like, absolutely no doubt about it, 90% of kids are gonna have a problem. If you tell them a few minutes before, like, hey, we only have a little bit of time to play this game. I know you really love little people. You really want to play your imaginary game for a while, but we have to leave soon. We're gonna go get dressed in 5 minutes. And you say it really clearly, and they don't know what 5 minutes is. They're like 2. Or maybe 3, but giving them a distinct, they're going to learn that this 5 minutes is a short time frame. It's giving them some kind of warning. You could say at the end, if you are a family that has TV, at the end of this show, it's going to be time to turn the TV off. At the end of this show, it's going to be time to get dressed so that we can go to the playground. Giving them really specific things that they can anticipate. For some kids, they might even need you to draw that out. You could draw them a little picture. Like, first, you're going to get dressed, and you could put a little picture of a shirt and pants. Then we're going to go in the car, and then you're going to have a picture. Then we'll be at the playground. Like, give them each of these things. Just by having that visual cue often diffuses so many of the tantrums that can possibly happen. They feel like
they have some sort of control over the situation because they know what the next step is.
Yeah. And they can draw on it. Like, if they want to scribble all over what you just drew and you know your drawing was really nice, if they want
it's
let
okay.
them draw on it. It's okay, because it's
has that happened to
letting
you too?
them of course letting them really express themselves. They're making their own list. They're getting out their feelings. That's a whole separate great strategy in the heat of the moment when a child is really upset and really frustrated and having some kind of breakdown. You can pull out a piece of paper and maybe offer them, if they want to draw their feelings, let them draw it out. But if sometimes it's too much, this is where you can take their feelings and validate them on paper even if they don't read, even if they don't write, it doesn't matter. I'll just get out a piece of paper and I'll write like the child's name and write, mad. This child is mad. This child wants to go wherever, whatever it is. I think we're getting a low battery, so we'll tie it up a little bit. But this book, we'll put some resources at the end, but How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk has a lot of great resources. It's by Adele Faber and Elaine Maslish. I have been in early childhood for over 20 years, and I just read that in the last, probably, I don't know, 5 or 6. But it has like cartoons in it. It's from the 80s, so it's a little dated, but there are some updated versions. But it goes through, like, as a parent, what you really want to do initially, like what your initial reaction is, and how you can choose to respond. Mm-hmm. So having somebody to hold your hand and help, like I said, is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And then also repeating what you want over and over again doesn't help. Like, we have to leave now. We have to leave now. We have to leave now.
Nope, that makes it worse.
That just makes it worse.
I fall into that all the time. Yeah. And I'm like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. Another really good book is The Whole Brain Child by Dan Siegel. And this book is going to actually teach you about how the brain works. And it's not just for kids, it's all of our brains. Mm-hmm. Like, once we get into that fight or flight response where we're just so angry and we're just like throwing
There's
a
no
fit,
reasoning at
there's
that point.
absolutely, their brain has shut down. So you need to get them to relax and calm down in some way. Using oils, Gentle Baby is a great one for kids. You can just swipe a little bit on the back of their neck, or any Valor. Help them to get calm. And you can do that just by sitting next to them. You can do that by holding them. You can do that just by sitting in the room while they do whatever they're going to do. Not leaving them. Like, kids need to know that you're going to be there. They need to know that you're not going to abandon them in their time of need. Even when it seems like they are so mean. They're screaming horrible things at you. They're tearing apart the room. Just your presence being there is doing so much for that child. And this is part of how they're going to learn trust. This is going to be part of how they're going to learn their own self-regulation, so that and noticing what they're doing, talking to them. Let's take some deep breaths. We're going to calm down together.
Give them some tools, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of mindfulness with kids,
mm-hmm.
Which we should all be doing. It's an amazing tool to take deep breaths, feel our bodies in the moment. You're really mad. Where do you feel it? Does your chest hurt? Does your neck hurt? Let's take some deep breaths into that spot. Often they're still crying. They're still flailing on the floor, but I'm doing this. I'm speaking what I'm seeing, and I'm modeling it. And after like the third or fourth time,
they usually start to pay attention.
Mm-hmm. And when I first said that, I meant like, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not the next day. But by the third or fourth time of you continually modeling this as they're going through whatever they're going through, and doing it yourself, modeling them in the moment when you're frustrated, you drop all the peppers that you just chopped up for the soup all over the floor and the dog just walked all over them. That's really frustrating. And you've got somewhere to go in a minute. We were just about to put it in and put the lid on the crock pot. And now you're frustrated. Like, in that moment, you can be like, wow, I'm really angry. Speaking that out loud, again, modeling, being the change you wish to see, you're going to be laying that foundation for the kids. You're not going to scream. You're not going to yell, oh, there's no dinner. You're going to, well, there's not going to be peppers in the pot tonight, whatever. Like, we're just not going to have, and is it the end of the world? Not the end of the world. I'm going to breathe. Or I'm being super calm right now. If you're really angry, and I feel like peppers wasn't a good example because it doesn't really make you angry.
How about you dropped a dozen eggs on the floor? Because
there you go.
If anybody's ever done that.
Like a favorite plate that was grandma's fine china, or something that really makes you upset. It makes you want to cry. It makes you want to yell. It just makes you want to like sit into a bumble on the floor. Show them like, wow, I'm like, talk to them out loud and take those deep breaths. Grab your oil. They're going to start to come to you and ask you for the oils. They're going to start to take those deep breaths on their own.
Can I just tell you real quick?
Yeah.
Real quick. The other day, I don't remember what happened, but I was frustrated, and my daughter, my 6-year-old, came up to me, and I wasn't freaking out, but I was just standing there, just like taking a couple deep breaths, but my face was still not happy, and my 6-year-old just came up to me. She's like, Mommy, would you like an oil and to take some deep breaths with me? I was like, I would. And she went and grabbed, I don't know which oil she grabbed, but it was delightful, whatever she grabbed. Probably a lemon or something like that. Those are her favorites. And it just uplifted me. But she said, I see that you're frustrated. She said this. I see that you're frustrated. Take a sniff of your oil and a deep breath. And I'm like, that's truly what she sees us do.
Yeah.
And that's how she knows how to deal with it. And it was really cool to see that. Now, she didn't do that right away in life, but if we give the kids the tools, they're going to know how to use it. They're going to know how to share those tools. And it's going to be awesome.
They're going to have them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Like, this is, when we, slip and we realize our kids, saying that special curse word that we don't even realize we say, right? That's just showing us, a foundational example.
Mm-hmm.
They do what we do.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with them saying that curse word. They're doing what we do. So if we don't want them to do it, then don't do it.
Right.
And it's the same thing with everything. And we have so much possibility. We have so much potential. Children truly are the future. They're humans. They're little, the idea of learning about your kids and child development. A lot of people are like, I don't need to know about that. It's not just child development. It's human development. It's how you grew up. And reading that stuff and putting on the inner child oil is really, really helpful, because you're going to realize so many of the things that just you think are part of you were actually conditioned in, were actually things that you learned and that you can let go of. And that deep within, there's something much deeper and something better in you that you have to give out into the world to let your light shine.
When you let go and when you realize that you don't need to be in full control all of the time, life is just so much lighter. So much lighter. And we always remember, being a parent is the most important job. We have a lot going on, but a lot of people kind of, right, as Kim was saying, won't pick up the book and read it, or listen to the parenting podcast, or join the group where there's like-minded people, and it's, we can just make it through. This is the most important job. So if you're going to research anything in your life, we should always be learning new stuff all the time, even as adults, that we get that in our head. We went through school, we're done. We're not done, especially when it comes to kids. Reading this Whole Brain Child, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I'm halfway through that one. It's just oh, that makes sense. And you can relate to your kids so much better just with the knowing. I feel like that what is it called? Fight or flight. When she's in it now, I just go back to what that book said. Just comfort and wait for her to be, back, that you can speak again, because we can't learn it if we don't research. So as a parent, researching as much as you can, questioning everything, letting go of that full control, because your kids, you want to control your household, right? You're the mom or you're the dad, but they're part of the household too. And so they want some control too, and we have to be okay with that. We decided to have kids. They're part of our lives now, and so they are going to have some of that. Clearly, we have to make the schedules, and we have to be certain places, but also allowing them to have some of the control takes a little bit off you. You know what? You want to spend the day at the park today? That's now. You just took full control. That's what we're going to do today, if you can. Every situation is different, but it's kind of freeing. So definitely research and think about that, letting go and responding instead of reacting. And just live a more, it's definitely more freedom in parenting, but more attention on the kids. So it's not easy, especially because we've been conditioned, but it is worth it.
And also to go along on it's not exactly the flip side, but hand in hand with research. Research for the things, you need to know a little bit, right? If you feel like you don't know to begin with. But you also know so much within you. And I don't mean the conditioning stuff. I mean in your heart. With babies that are crying. I don't think that there's any new mother who hears her baby screaming, who thinks, oh, I should put that baby down. There's not,
No.
because that's not what we were created to do.
Yeah,
when you hear that baby screaming, that baby needs you to hold it, to hug it, to give that baby love, and that's how the baby's going to gain trust. That baby needs you. When your toddler is throwing a tantrum on the floor because they usually take a nap an hour ago, they need your love. That's what's going to help them to get to the next place. Mm-hmm. So following your gut of what you really feel, and I don't mean the conditioned part. I mean what's really in you, what you know to be true, it's true. Like, I think we've all been conditioned that out of us, that we don't know anything and that we need a book to tell us.
What is the answer? Yeah.
I do think like there's a lot of stuff we don't know, and it's because we didn't learn it in our lives. And that if you are somebody who needs some of those facts and things, definitely go to the books. And I highly recommend books. But I'm also learning more and more with age. We have so many of the answers inside. Don't be scared to follow that gut. And the answers are not to hit our kids. Nobody wants to like hurt our children unless you are in that place, which we've all been. But that's not trusting your gut. That is your ego. Yeah. Like that's you being in fight and flight. You're fighting your 2-year-old or your 5-year-old or your 12-year-old. So when you are in a calm state, when you are feeling balanced in yourself, you have all the answers. So having, just notice that there's a balance between all of it. Don't go too far on either side.
That was perfect. Yeah. Like really, a lot of this is just going back to the basics of listening to yourself. I think getting rid of all the confusion. I feel like we've just created all this confusion. So now new parents don't know where to start.
Yeah.
But just going back.
Yeah. You don't really need to, like, I love books and
if you really want to understand why it's working and why we can't talk to them while, they're doing certain things, but
I think strategies help. But yeah. All right. Well, I think that we're at the end. Just to like bring it home, stay calm, be a good listener, think about why you say what you say, reflect back to them how they're feeling, release as much control as you possibly can. Try saying yes, yes, yes.
Do that for one day. Really try it out. It's life-changing.
And speak with flexibility and understanding. So say something, but know that it's not necessarily going to be the end. They're in a partnership. You're going to see what's going to happen. And then what were we going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, make sure if you are watching this and you really want to dive into trying to shift your mind to do what we talked about in the beginning, grab your oils, envision the future you want for your family and your children. Visit your beliefs first, right? So you're going to go back to inner child and all of that and write it down. Just journal. Journaling helps so much to get on papers, and then put your intention out there. Write a bunch of words on a paper, just all the things you want. Try to make a nice little sentence for yourself, and then practice it and look at it daily. Every morning, read what you want. Put on that valor. Go into the day strong and confident, uplifted, and be who you want your kids to be.
The power of setting an intention is, when you start your day knowing what you want, you get what you want way more than when you just start the day hitting sleep 10 million times and the kids are like jumping on top of you. And, when you have kids, sometimes you need to find a way to get up a little early. And I know I'm nobody to say this because I don't have my own, but
it's hard sometimes, but it makes a huge difference when you wake up like an hour early. But anyway, do the work with yourself. Step back. Give your kids the attention that you would want.
And ask for help.
Yeah.
We're here. We really just want to be lights in the world. We want to help as many people as we can have the best lives that they possibly can. And the best way to do that is to start when the kids are little.
Have a great Sunday evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Good night.
Good night.